read or comprehend, high-level texts. And so when they had this clear problem that they weren't going to pass, they had to address the predicaments that were keeping them from getting there. And so, when every challenge is out there, it presents an opportunity. When the ban came down from our district on phones, our school had to modify our disciplinary program that allowed kids who establish a track record of using their phone wisely or being able to have it. Other kids are like, well, I want to get there as well. How do I get there? Well, here are the steps. And so I see this as limiting. I get the K-5, element and maybe middle school too, but why does the state have to interfere with the great, plans that schools are developing, and also the, as the testimony described there, these great opportunities to talk about, 21st century skills with kids?
There's a phenomenon called a collective action trap. And I think as you heard with Jennifer Wilson talking about how these phones are an impediment while the brain is developing. But in this collective action trap, it's the momentum or the inertia of the behaviors of those around us suck us in. There are 886 school districts in the state of Michigan. If we wait for all 886 to come up with a program, we're going to be waiting a long time. So all I'm trying to do is, I'm not, like Virginia indicated, they've got a bell-to-bell exclusion, period. We're just trying to establish a baseline for these school districts to operate off of, and then they can be as creative within those baseline guidelines, or as strict, more strict. So again, there's 56 intermediate school districts, 537 local school districts, 293 charter and academy administrative entities. And we want to break that collective action cycle. Mr. Paquette, you're the only one that doesn't allow us to have a phone in class. As Casey was talking about that pushback, that pressure from the students. Mom, I need to get a smartphone. I'm the only one at school that doesn't have one. And so if we can break that cycle, that collective action trap, that gives people the room to go in and implement what's best for the students.
And just a quick follow-up, if I may. So if there's a school that is breaking the law and allowing our disciplinary system to take place, what are the penalties? Are we going to go to jail?
I haven't put penalties in this, but that's something that we could address through a purse string issue, whatever. But the point is, I've been working with the Oakland County Intermediate School District for almost 2 years on this. 28 superintendents. That's how I got to meet Dr. Schwartz. These are professionals. They're bright people. They want to do what's best for their kids, and the legislation I'm promoting is going to give them room to do that without that. Gosh, you're the only one.
Representative Fox.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the broad spectrum of testimony. Really good to have it from so many different angles.
And people that are actually doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to throw my hat in the ring too. I experienced the same thing as a K through 12 administrator with schools without cell phones. It really makes a difference academically, socially, and in so many ways. So I just have two questions. One is, should we prohibit cell phones in the legislature too? Would that be helpful for us? And the other one is, do you think prohibiting cell phones will help us move from number 4?
I'll let Casey answer that last question.
Yes, it will definitely help us. It will help us educate our students. And so if you trust that the Michigan teachers are among some of the best in the nation, which I was public educated my entire way through school, I believe that 100%. We have amazing teachers in Michigan. If you believe in the teachers in Michigan, all we need to do is get the phone out of the faces of the students, and we'll see our students do better.
Yeah. And I think Principal Gomez's testimony indicated that significant 15, 20, 30 percentage point rises in many of the increases in many of the metrics. again, I became at the middle school. It's a bell-to-bell exclusion. I'm not sure what Dr. Schwartz and the school district's high school expansion is. But back to Rep. Kuntz's question a little bit. The National Center for School Safety, and Dr. Schwartz talked about this. The last thing you want is for your kids to be fumbling, reaching, trying to get in connection with their parents or anyone else, 911, in the event of an actual emergency. You want them solely focused on the trained professional that's at the head of the classroom. You do not want cell phone ringers going off behind a closed door, making aware the presence of students to an active shooter that's wandering the halls. Doors are not bulletproof. You do not want 100 or more parents showing up at the schools in their cars when first responders are trying to get there. And those are the issues. And you take a look at Oxford, which is just north of my district, the Oxford shooting. The 911 system was flooded. The cell system was flooded. So that access became unavailable. And many parents, I get it, want to have contact in the event of an emergency. But talking to you 6 miles away from the site of the emergency does not enhance their safety. And that's the part that has to be reeled back in again. And we got to let the system, let the professionals do their jobs, and then every program that I've spoken to has some opportunity for the kids to then reach out to their own parents.
Vice Chair Linting.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony. This has been very informative and helpful, and I do see this as a real issue. The last gentleman that testified said we all went to school without smartphones and we survived. And I'm kind of calling myself
Maybe there's
out
an
here.
exception.
But there is an exception. That wasn't a completely accurate statement. I did attend school, and we all had smartphones, and I was able to see the negative impact that it had on both myself and my peers. And so I completely understand this issue. But my question was, in testimony, I heard from you talking about flip phones, and then the last person who testified also mentioned smartwatches, and you both cited that you've had success in your schools with those devices exempt, with those devices still being present. And I see here that it appears that the wireless communication device you have listed would also ban those flip phones or watches and those devices. So I'm just curious if you could either clarify that, or if you would be interested in making kind of an exemption for those devices, and maybe it would ease some concerns for parents.
I can't remember if we made an exception for flip phones, or if we increase the definition to internet connectability. Okay,
Yeah.
there's no exemption right now.
Okay.
But go ahead.
So for our school, we don't exempt Apple Watches, smart watches, or flip phones either. So if they bring in a flip phone, they still check it in.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we do is we're trying to do two things: set a policy at the school level to help the kids succeed educationally, and then number two, we're trying to work with the culture. How do you change the culture to show these kids you don't really need a smartphone? You're a kid. You're in fourth grade, because we have issues with third graders, fourth graders waking up with 200 plus texts in the morning. Imagine that, a third grader, and many of these texts are not positive.
Yeah.
So we are trying to do two things at once: try to change the culture, but also set a policy. And I think policy ultimately sets a culture. There's no quiet law, and so it's going to say something. It's going to speak. This is an issue, and we should probably start paying attention.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great. Representative Boyce, quick, please.
Thank you. First of all, Representative Paquette, you said pretty much everything I wanted to say, so thank you for that. And you asked
Don't encourage it.
You asked the main question I wanted to ask, but I did want to follow up and kind of add on, because I taught in a district where we did not have reliable technology. We didn't have reliable internet. And we're also trying to teach our children 21st century skills, as you mentioned, and part of that is digital literacy. And so I often used, I had a strict cell phone policy in my classroom too, but I did allow my students to use it for academic work, and we had a lot of success in that. And have you considered districts that have those kinds of struggles that maybe don't have enough funding to support? And it's not even just like we could do a one-time appropriation and give everybody a Chromebook, but that technology needs to be maintained and updated over time, and there needs to be sustained funding to support that. And so my concern is you pass a one-fits-all policy for the entire state, but you have districts with very different needs. And I am concerned about kids who may not have the same level of access to technology in some districts versus others being left behind in those 21st century skills. And then my other question, and just as a flag, I know a lot of students who have diabetes have pumps that use cell phones as part of that, and just flagging that as well.
Yeah, for the last part, the H1 sub addresses the IDEA federal law would obviously supersede state law, but we just put in there medically necessary devices, district issued or school issued devices as well. Teachers have the discretion to make the technology a part of any classroom lesson or lesson plan, but it's at their discretion. If there's a problem with internet access, keeping devices updated, those kinds of things, that's not what we're aiming at here. We're trying to create an environment that eliminates the distraction of cell phones specifically during instruction time, but others would tell you, bell to bell. And it's just plain old mental hygiene. While the brain is developing, as Jennifer Wilson, talked about, you don't need that as an attention suck away from reading and math proficiency, which we have a problem with here in the state.
Thank you for that. I agree that that's an issue. I just encourage you to think of some of the unintended consequences.
Oh, there will be some, as there is with every legislation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know whatever you do, Representative Tisdale, you do not approach it with a casual shoot from the hip idea. You're really been so diligent about this.
This is all blank paper.
Yeah.
So, this is,
Well, we're impressed, and we appreciate your advocacy for the students of the state of Michigan.
And again, yeah, my thanks to my guests. And those are the people that are actually doing the hard work. I don't have any special interests or stakeholders.
Right.
We wrote this in our office, and this is about version number 5, and we try and keep making it better.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to take children out of addiction, and some children are responding with violence to taking a phone away. There have been serious stories about those kind of things happening, and so we need to help them learn that there are other ways to communicate. There's a way to have a culture without a cell phone. You can learn with it. You can have without it. You can have conversation without it. You can have positive interaction with the world without it, and that gives them a window to escape addiction. And the sooner we can do that, I think the healthier the students will be across our state. So thank you so much.
Thank you to the committee for your engagement, for enduring us. And it's a big, big topic, and I wanted to get in as many boots on the ground professionals as possible.
Thank you. We have cards that are going to be entered into the record because of the amount of time here. We do have a short comment that Bob Ryden from the Michigan... Bob Kefkin, I can't read right, sorry, from the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals, yes, would like to speak and supports the bill. Is he here? Can you say something quickly?
You're on, Bob.
Thanks, Representative.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Very briefly, Bob Kefchin from the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals, representing about 1,800 high school, CT, and middle school principals and assistant principals. MASSP strongly supports this bill. We are very clear as membership that while we understand that some districts have local policies right now, most districts have local policies right now, the fact that we are still here debating the problems that we are having with cell phones in schools points very clearly to the fact that while we are seeing some pockets of success more broadly, we are seeing challenges. And this is where the state can come in, because if we have consistent rules that don't vary building to building, district to district, classroom to classroom, it's much easier to get parents, students, and communities on board with common expectations. So I have more prepared remarks, but I'm happy to share those with the committee in writing later, and I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you. I appreciate your flexibility. Thank you. Also, Jennifer Smith from the Michigan Association of School Boards would like to speak quickly. She opposes the bill.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you, Madam Chairperson and the committee for allowing me to speak on this bill. I realize I am the lone voice in the woods right now, but wanted to point out some of the reasons that we are opposed. My name is Jennifer Smith, and I'm Director of Government Relations for the Michigan Association of School Boards, and we represent the elected boards across the state. We totally agree that schools should have a cell phone policy for their students to reduce distractions and increase focus in the classroom. However, we do oppose this bill because it is far too prescriptive and will not meet the needs of all districts. We know one-size-fits-all policies do not work in education, and this is no different. Banning cell phones on all school grounds, or those devices on all school grounds for K-5 students, could be detrimental to their everyday routine. Many students walk to school or ride their bike, and parents feel better having some sort of device with their child in case something goes wrong on the way to and from school. One district in West Michigan does not bus at all because it is so geographically small, so every one of their students is either walking, riding, or being dropped off. Banning all electronic devices during instructional time at middle and high school levels also takes away the ability to use them for instructional purposes. For example, a science class at the high school may be using their phones to record reactions in order to watch them in slow motion and study them better. Finally, this bill does not include exceptions for students with a 504 plan, an IEP, or medical needs. We should not ban phones during instructional time for those populations who need them as outlined in their plans or as a medical assist. I do appreciate that there's a subcommittee that may address some of those concerns. We instead support something closer to what the state of Ohio has adopted. It requires schools to have a policy, allows them to ban the devices, but leaves the details of that policy to the local districts to determine what is best for their students and teachers. It also establishes a timeline for adoption. This would allow districts that already have policies, as we have heard about, that are working for their students and staff to continue those policies without having to make sudden changes because the state decided their policies weren't enough. We encourage you to rethink House Bill 4141 and look to give our districts a little more flexibility to make the appropriate decisions on this issue for their students, teachers, and administrators, and to find a way to limit those distractions in their classrooms. And I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We won't have time for questions, but we appreciate your testimony. Vice Chair Linting moves to excuse our absent member, and there will being no objection, absent members are excused, and there being no further business before the committee, the House Committee on Education and Workforce will stand adjourned.
Life's little joys sometimes come with big flavor, like our Colby Jack Pub Burger, bagged for a limited time with fresh beef, Wisconsin Colby Jack cheese, crispy onions, and zesty A1 pepper mayo. Get it before it's gone at Culver's. Always on, day and night.
Let's go, I'm unstoppable like a money flow. Let's go. I know they used to doubt me, now I got 'em like, whoa.
Always analyzing. Always discovering new insights. Always optimizing. Always focused on the way forward. The one wearable that's always on.
Well, once again today, Donald Trump backed down. Once again today, the man who always pretends he never backs down, never backed down big time. Donald Trump said repeatedly today, and it seemed desperately, quote, I have no intention of firing him. And he was not talking about his unqualified and incompetent Secretary of Defense who shared battle plans with his wife and others, the same Secretary of Defense who promised to stop drinking if he became Secretary of Defense. Donald Trump said nothing today about Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. He did not defend Pete Hegseth today. He did not attempt to deny any of the reporting from the New York Times and NBC News about the ways that his Secretary of Defense shared battle plans. In fact, no one in the Trump administration, including Pete Hegseth himself, to this day, to this hour, to this minute, has ever attempted in any way at all to explain, defend, or deny specifically what Pete Hegseth has been accused of doing in sharing battle plans. Hegseth has insisted the information, the details of battle plans were not classified. There was a time when a Secretary of Defense getting caught leaking sensitive information could have, among other things, rocked the stock market and sent it into a downward spiral. But the stock market has no time to worry.